Welcome to the FDOT Automated Quantities Training for MicroStation Select Series 4, Module 5. This video will cover Chapter 6 from the Automated Quantities Training Guide and will discuss Plan Summary Boxes and Linked Data Manager. Summary of quantities, summary tables, plan summary boxes. What are we talking about when we refer to these boxes? The boxes are actually tables that we use to document the quantity of materials or work on a project. The materials and work, everything that is done or materials that are used on a project, are defined with pay items in the Basis of Estimates manual. And all pay item quantities must be documented and quantified by location in the plans. Well, where do these boxes go in the plans? They can go on the Summary of Quantities sheets, Summary of Drainage sheets, or Tabulation of Quantities sheets. The Basis of Estimates Manual, Chapter 8, has a full listing of all the approved summary boxes and gives detailed instructions on the order and contents of each summary box. So we know what sheets the boxes go on, but where do these sheets belong in my plan set? Signing and pavement marking, lighting, signalization, landscaping, and utility component plans use tabulation sheets. These belong behind the key sheet in their various component plan sets. The BOE gives additional direction for when there are items from these components, but no component plan set. The Summary of Drainage sheets go in with the drainage plans and are created outside of the Summary of Quantities and LDM process. See the FDOT Geopack Drainage Training for more information on this workflow. Roadway and structure summaries go on the Summary of Quantities sheets, and that's what we'll focus on in this module. The roadway Summary of Quantities sheets go in the plan set following the numbered plan sheets, and each sheet will be numbered with an SQ prefix. The file name for the MicroStation drawing file that contains the summaries is SUMQRD. The star indicates a wildcard where you can add a sequence number 01 or 02 or 03 if you create multiple files. But you can actually put all of your summary sheets in a single SUMQRD DGN, and that's okay. In the structures plans, the Summary of Quantities sheets go after the index or key sheet, or after the Summary of Pay items if it's a standalone structures plan set. The sheets will be numbered with a BQ prefix along with a structure number, then the dash, then the sheet number. So for a project with two structures, you'd start with BQ1-1 for the first structure and BQ2-1 for the second structure. The MicroStation file name will follow a similar naming process, including the structure number. It will start with a B, then the structure number, followed by Sum of Quantities, and the star indicates an optional sequence number. So the file name for the DGN that contains your summary boxes for your first structure would be B1 Sum of Quantities 01.dgn, and the second structure would be B2 Sum of Quantities 01.dgn, etc. Let's take a look at the two different kinds of Excel templates that are provided to work with LDM. The first group of files that are listed here are the templates that are formatted and set up to pull the data from the Quantity Manager database to fill out the boxes and put all that information into the Excel file for us. All of the templates that are provided as automated also have a non-automated copy, just in case a designer wasn't using Quantity Manager and had to complete these tables by hand. Hopefully that doesn't happen often, if at all, but they're there if they're needed. Then we have the templates that aren't automated. They're formatted as required by the BOE with all the columns and headings, but the designer has to fill in all the quantity data on those tables. Some aren't automated because the information wouldn't be in Quantity Manager. Some aren't automated because the formats of different pay items within the same table makes it too complex for LDM to automate. We'll discuss this more later in this module. I did want to point out the Miscellaneous Drainage Summary box. This box is only to be used when there is incidental drainage work on a project and there is no summary of drainage structures present in the plans. If there is a summary of drainage structures, all the drainage should be documented there, and there should not be a summary of miscellaneous drainage. You should never have both boxes within the same plan set. When creating summary boxes through LDM, we're prompted to save the Excel file to our project. All the summary box Excel files should be saved in the Calculations folder. I recommend leaving the file names as they're delivered with the FDOT CADD software, and possibly adding an identifying number or code if necessary. Keeping the file names consistent will make it easier to locate a particular table if one needs to be modified or reviewed and checked later. You should also store any Quantity Manager reports or any other quantity-related documentation in the Calculations folder. If necessary, you can create subfolders within the Calculations folder to organize the information. For example, you could add subfolders for roadway and structures. But you'd need to be sure to create those folders before creating your LDM links, because the links would break if you move the files and change the path. There are a couple of exceptions to our summary box workflow. Any of the component plans that require a tabulation of quantities instead of summary boxes will continue to fill out their tab sheets as directed in the workflow for that component. For example, for directions on how to complete the tab sheet for the signing of pavement marking component, you'd need to refer to the FDOT Traffic Plans training. And the summary of drainage structures is processed through a separate application provided on the FDOT bar menu and does not work with LDM. See the FDOT Geopack Drainage training for this process. Now let's talk about Link Data Manager. What does LDM do? For the automated quantities process, it provides a link between the Excel spreadsheets that we create from the provided templates and our MicroStation design files so that we can include the tables and data in our plan sheets. It can also link text files and Word documents to MicroStation and can be used to link other Excel tables to MicroStation for use in the plans. Various templates are provided for these other uses and can be explored and used where applicable. It also can read the Quantity Manager database and, based on the template selected, extract the necessary data and write it to the Excel spreadsheet, which it then links to MicroStation. Another thing LDM does is it maintains a link between the table in Excel and the corresponding table in MicroStation. When changes are made to the Excel file, LDM can be used to manually update the link, so the changes are reflected in MicroStation, or it can be configured to update the links to the Excel file each time the MicroStation design file is opened. What are some of the things that LDM will not do? When the summary box is placed in MicroStation, it behaves like a cell. It can be moved without breaking the link. It can even be modified in MicroStation, and the text can be edited, unless the link is set to lock graphics. However, if you change the text in MicroStation, those changes will not be saved back to the Excel file, and the next time the link is updated, whether manually or on file open, the Excel data will overwrite any changes made in MicroStation. LDM links work one way. Changes must be made in Excel, then updated to MicroStation. Another thing that can be frustrating is that what you see in Excel is not always what you get in MicroStation when it comes to word wrapping. The cell margins in Excel don't translate through LDM, so a buffer had to be programmed in so that the text didn't appear directly on top of the table borderlines. This means that even when it looks like all the text will fit on one line in Excel, it may still wrap to another line in MicroStation. You may find it necessary to adjust column widths with a little trial and error, saving in Excel, updating, and checking to see if the MicroStation table looks like you want it to. With a little practice, you'll get a feel for about how much extra space you need to leave to get your column widths where you want them to be. Finally, sometimes designers have complex calculations that they need to use to determine the quantities they need to include in their summary boxes. LDM will not accept an Excel file with macros enabled, so it won't work with an Excel SM file. Even though formulas can be used in Excel files, sometimes complex formulas can cause problems when linking an Excel file through LDM. Just keep that in mind, and if you're worried about whether a particular formula will cause errors, give it a test early in your summary box development. If necessary, you can create a separate file in the Calculations folder for quantity data requiring complex formulas. Then the results can be copied as plain text into the template linked through LDM to be included in the summary box. This adds an extra step and requires extra care to make sure that any changes to the complex formula file get copied through to the template, then updated through LDM to MicroStation. Let's take a look at the LDM dialog. To open LDM, you can either click on the chain link icon, Open Link Data Manager, in the FDOT Plans Development Quantities taskbar, or you can select Actions, Link Data Manager from the FDOT toolbar, or if you're in your SUMQRD file, you can right-click and hold for the context menu, and you'll see the option for Link Data Manager. The LDM dialog is fairly simple. The first icon looks like a chain and is the Create New Link button. The second icon looks like a broken chain and will delete an existing link. Next, the X icon will delete both link and graphics. The information icon will display the settings for a selected link. The project settings generally don't need to be modified, and the user settings will set the default options that appear when a new link is created. When you click on the Create New Link button, the Link Information dialog will appear. To create a new summary box that's automated and populated from the Quantity Manager database, we select Create New from Quantities. Then we have to click the Browse button to navigate to the Quantity Manager database and fill in the file path. Once the file path is set, we want to force all of the text to be uppercase. The Estimates Office prefers text in all summary boxes to be in uppercase. Next, select the summary you want to create, then click OK. You'll be directed to save your file to the project, and you'll want to place it in the Calculations folder. After you've saved it in the Calculations folder, you'll see the source path is populated. This description line only shows in LDM. Since the files are named pretty clearly, the extra description isn't really needed, but you could add a description here if you want. On the Create from Quantities Link Information dialog, you have a Quantity Report section. This is different in the non-automated version, and we'll look at that in a bit. On this one, if you want, you can choose to place a title block cell along with your summary box. Notice that it's set to default to the roadway sheet plan border cell, and the X and Y offset are automatically set to place the summary box slightly offset from the border. If you were placing a tabulation of quantities box, you'd want to change the X offset to 0. We recommend always leaving the graphics settings to FDOT standard, and the settings along the bottom are pretty self-explanatory. If you check the Use Drawing Scale, it will set the summary box and its text font size based on whatever the drawing scale is set to. Since the only thing we'll ever be placing in the SUMQRD file is our summary boxes, there's really no reason to ever set the plot scale or drawing scale to anything other than 1. Update graphics on file open. Each time you open the SUMQRD DGN file, having this checked will cause the link to update from the Excel file. I recommend keeping this option checked on. Just be aware that if you update your Excel file and then do a batch plot, it won't update the summary boxes. You have to fully open the DGN file for the link to update. Lock graphics will keep anyone from accidentally editing the summary box or the text in MicroStation. Since anything changed in the DGN would not update in Excel and would get overwritten by the Excel file when the links were updated, this isn't a bad thing to check, but it isn't required. The Use Print area is an option for the placement, but I haven't seen it used. The option is there if it helps with your workflow. The User Settings buttons that we saw earlier allows you to set the default options for these 4 checkboxes. So whatever you set there will be the default options that show up as checked when you get to this screen. I have my user settings set to always only have the Update on File Open checked. Exercise 6.1. Create new summary boxes from quantities. In this exercise, we'll use the Create File tool to create a new summary of quantities SUMQRD file and save it to our project. Then we'll use LDM to create, save, place, and edit an automated summary box. So following along with the exercise, I've already got MicroStation open and I'm in the QTD SRD file. The first thing we need to do is go to Actions, Create Files. In the Create File dialog, confirm that you've got the correct project path. If not, click Select Project and browse to the project. Ours is set right, so confirm the discipline is roadway and the file group is roadway files. The next thing we need to do is find the SUMQRD file name in the list and highlight it. Then we'll double-check the file name and sequence number, the output folder and seed, the county, and if everything looks good, click Create Open File. Verify that we're in the SUMQRD file, then close the Create File dialog. Since this file should only contain text and tables, we can leave the plot scale set to 1 and click OK. Now we want to open Link Data Manager. The exercise says to use the button on the Quantities taskbar. But we can also right-click in the file for the Context menu and select Link Data Manager from there. In the LDM dialog, let's click Create New Link. In the Link Information dialog, we could create from Template, create from Quantities, or select an existing file. For this exercise, we're going to create from Quantities. In this window, we need to enter the path to our Quantity Manager database, so let's click the Browse button. Verify that we're in the correct project folder and find the 220-495-55201 AQT MDB file and click Open. Now the path is set and we need to check the box to force all the text to uppercase. Then look in the list and select the summary of payment and click OK. We're going to save the template to our Calculations folder. Verify that the path is correct. Notice that the CSV files we created in the last module are already here. The file name is good, so click Save. It takes a second to process, so be patient while this dialog window finishes loading. Notice that the Excel settings changes to Quantity Report. These settings are only available on the Create from Quantities automated process. The exercise wants us to fill in the description with pavement. In this window, we have the option to place a title block along with our summary boxes. Check the Place Title Block box. The roadway sheet cell is set by default, and the offset is set to place the summary box slightly off from the border. For a tabulation of quantities, you change the X offset to 0 because the tab sheets go all the way across the border. The graphic settings and all the options across the bottom are good, so we can click OK. Now, depending on how much data is in your Quantity Manager database and how many sheets LDM has to process, this part can take a little while. You can see in the bottom status bar that the justification node is flickering. This lets you know that it's still processing. When it's done, the summary box and border will appear on your cursor. Left-click in the design file to place the summary boxes. You can see in the LDM dialog that it has created 3 links for 3 sheets. Let's zoom extents and take a look around. Notice that some of the descriptions are having a problem with the word wrap and don't fit within their columns. We'll need to fix that. And the summary box doesn't quite fit within the border. So we need to right-click on any one of the links in LDM and select Open Source to open the Excel file. One thing I'll caution you on is if you'll be out of LDM for a while, you'll want to pop back over to MicroStation and close LDM. If it sits idle too long, it will cause an error and it can completely crash MicroStation. So save yourself a headache and keep LDM closed unless you're actively using it. It's really easy to reopen that dialog. Back in Excel, let's clean things up a bit. Following along in the training guide, the first thing we need to do is group all three of the worksheet tabs. You can either hold down Control and select each tab, or select the first and hold Shift to select the last. Make sure they're all highlighted so the changes we're about to make happen on all three worksheets. Then it says we can hide the length and width columns. Make sure the I and J columns are highlighted, then right-click on the header and select Hide. Next, we'll hide the location description column. Click on the column header to highlight the F column, then right-click on the header and select Hide. Now we know we need to adjust the pay item description column to fix that word wrapping problem. We can drag it until it looks right and go back and forth to see when it's showing up right in MicroStation, but this time we know what column width will work. Click on the B column header to highlight the entire column. Then right-click and select Column Width. Set the value to 95, then click OK. Make sure to ungroup the sheets before you make any other changes. Just in case you can't get the word wrapping fixed, if there's not enough space within the border to make the column width work, you can split the text across two lines. Select a part of the text, then cut. Right-click in the next cell down and click Paste Values. Then add a couple of spaces to provide an indent. Tabs won't work and text indents don't translate through LDM, so just use a space or two to indicate that it's the continuation of the description. If everything else looks okay, save the Excel file and let's go back to MicroStation. We'll restart LDM and highlight all three of our links. Right-click and select Update Now. Notice that LDM has to process each link again as it updates. The status bar will flicker until it's finished. This error always pops up when you selected and processed more than one link at a time. Don't worry, nothing's broken. Just click OK. You could process each link one at a time and not get the error, but you don't have to. Close LDM, and we can look around and see that our changes have come through and our summary boxes look good now. To create a summary box from a template that's not automated, we'll start by clicking on the Create New Link button again, but this time we'll select Create New from Template. In the Select FDOT template window, we need to click the arrow for the pull-down list and select Computation Summary Boxes. Then we'll select the summary we want to create and click OK. Once again, after clicking OK, we'll be prompted to save the file to our project. After you've saved it in the Calculations folder, the source path is populated here. Once again, the description is optional. In this dialog, you'll notice that instead of a Quantity Report section, there's an Excel Settings section. Here, you'll need to select the worksheet that your quantities are in. If the Excel file has multiple pages of worksheets, you'll need to attach each worksheet separately. The width, offset, title cell, etc. aren't necessary, but for the non-automated summary boxes, you have to either place or copy your sheet border in MicroStation, because this tool only places the table for you. Keep the graphic settings and file settings as they are. One thing to note here is for structures files, you especially don't want to check the Use Drawing Scale option, since you'll need to place your plan sheet border at a scale of 12. Then place your summary box without the drawing scale option checked. The other settings are fine as they're set. Exercise 6.2. Create new summary boxes from template. In this exercise, we'll use LDM to create, save, place, and edit a non-automated summary box. Continuing from the previous exercise, let's adjust our view so we can place a blank sheet border for our next summary box. Go to Actions, Sheets, and select Plan Sheet. Then place the cell in the file at a scale of 1. Now we have our border. Let's open LDM. Right-click and hold, then select Link Data Manager. Notice it's still showing the active links we placed in the last exercise. Go to Create New Link, and this time we'll create new from template. There are a lot of various Word, text, and Excel templates that are delivered in addition to what we use in the automated quantities process, and you can find them through this pull-down. For this exercise, though, we want computation summary boxes. Select Summary of Lump Sum Items, then click OK. Check the path, then make sure to go to the Calculations folder. The file name is good, so click Save. The training guide says to enter lump sum items in the description line. Then, in the Excel Settings section, we need to set the worksheet to box 1. All of the other settings are OK as they are, so click OK. Once the summary box appears on the cursor, place it in the new border and zoom in to review it. Now we need to add the quantity data. So let's highlight the Lump Sum Items link in LDM, then right-click and select Open Source. Don't forget, we can close LDM out if we're going to be away from it for too long, to make sure that it doesn't crash. Back in Excel, and following the training guide, we want to enter the pay item number 0101. You'll notice that on this table, the cell format won't keep the leading 0. So we can go in and change the cell format from number to text. Then add the 0 back and it will hold. Then we'll enter the pay item description, mobilization, in all uppercase. Then enter a quantity value of 1. Click Save and close Excel. Back in MicroStation, let's restart LDM. Select our lump sum items link, right-click and select Update Now. Notice that our summary box has updated with our quantity information. Close LDM. Exercise 6.3. Create summary box with LDM and CSV files. In this exercise, we'll use LDM to create, save, place, and edit a non-automated summary box. Then we'll use Excel to copy and paste data from the Quantity Manager CSV reports we created in the last module and use that information to fill out the summary box. Continuing in our SUMQRD file, let's copy a border cell for our next summary box. And start LDM. We're going to create another new link. Create New from Template. And select Computation Summary Boxes. This time we want the summary of clearing and grubbing and removal items. Highlight it and click OK. Check the project path and select the Calculations folder. The file name is good, so click Save. We want to enter removal items in the description line. And select the worksheet box 1. All the other settings are good, so click OK. When the summary box appears on the cursor, place it in the border cell we copied over. We'll just drop it close to the top corner of the border. We can move it later if we need to, without breaking the link. It fits in this border, so we're okay to go on to the next step. Let's highlight our Removal Items link. Then right-click and select Open Source. Don't forget to close out LDM so it won't crash. Now, to fill in this summary box, we're going to use the CSV reports we created in the last module. The easiest way to get there is on the FDOT bar menu, select Standard, then Explore Current Working Directory. This opens an Explorer window to our project in the current discipline. Go up one level and select the Calculations folder. And there you can see our CSV files. Let's start with 110.1.1. I've tried to make these Excel windows smaller so that we can see both at the same time, but it's really tricky on a single screen. If you happen to have dual CAD monitors, this is so much easier. Just keep a close eye on which is the CSV and which is the summary box. Remember from the last module, if it makes it easier to read the columns, select the triangle in the upper left, then auto-fit column widths to clean up the display. Unfortunately, the CSV didn't hold the column width settings when we saved it, so we need to do it again. So the first thing we need to do in our summary box is copy in the pay item number. Remember, this only goes on the first line of the quantities for this pay item. Don't forget to paste with values only. Now, since our summary needs to be in uppercase, it may be easier to just type in the description. Clearing and grubbing. While we're at it, we don't need the length and width columns for this summary, so we can hide those two columns. That'll give us a little more room to work with. Now we're lucky and the format of the CSV has begin and end stations, side, and area ID all in the same order as the summary box. so we can highlight and copy all these values at the same time. Right-click in the first cell that the copied data will go into, then select Paste Values Only, and all our data is copied in. Now the units in CSV are acres, and the clearing and grubbing is paid for as lump sum. We need to give the quantities for both of these units. This is a hybrid pay item, and it's one of the reasons that this table can't be automated. So what we need to do is copy the area values from the CSV and paste them into the summary box column for secondary units. Right-click, Copy, then right-click in the first cell in the first line for this pay item, and paste values. Now we need to enter LS for the lump sum units for this pay item, and enter a total quantity of 1. To give a total of the secondary units, we can use a formula to put it in the Design Notes column. Select the first cell under the Design Notes column, then in the formula bar above, begin by typing equals SUM, then open parentheses. The tooltip shows number 1, number 2. You can select the cells in the table you want to add up, so highlight the numbers in the secondary units column. And notice that the formula now includes the column letters and numbers for the first and last numbers selected. Type close parentheses in the formula bar, then type ampersand, quote, space, total AC, and close quote, and hit enter. Notice the Design Notes cell now has the total value as well as the text for total acres. That has all of the data from our first pay item, so we can close that CSV and go on to the next one. Let's open the 11022 CSV. Once again, we'll copy the pay item number to the first line of this group and paste values. We can auto-fit the column width again to see all the text. Now let's type in the description in all caps, selective clearing and grubbing, comma, areas with trees to remain. Remember that comma is why the description split into 2 columns in the CSV. Then we can copy in our quantity values. Highlight all the values from Begin Station to the Area ID and copy. Then right-click in the first cell in the Begin Station column on this pay item row and paste values. Now the units on this pay item are not hybrid, they're just acres, so we can copy the AC into the units column on the first row of this pay item. Then we'll select and copy all the area values into the quantity column in the summary box. Right-click in the first cell and paste values. This is another reason we can't automate this summary. On the last pay item, the acres went into the secondary units column. On this pay item, it goes into the quantity column. The LDM code isn't able to put the same data into different columns for different pay items within the same summary box, so we have to rely on the designer to know which column to put the values in for this one. Another problem we run into is the different precisions required for different pay items. For the acres units, the BOE requires a final precision of 2 decimal places, with a calculated value of 1 additional significant digit, so we need to change the cell format on these quantities to 3 decimal places. So highlight all the cells in the quantity column, right-click, and select Format Cells. Then, on the Number tab, change the decimal places to 3 and click OK. And now they display correctly. Now, to get our total, we can use another formula. On the first row of this pay item, select the cell for the total quantity. And in the formula bar, begin typing equals SUM and open parentheses. Then highlight all the quantities for this pay item and make sure that the column and row designations show in the formula. Then type close parentheses and enter. Then we need to set the cell format for this value to 2 decimal places. Save the summary box and close the CSV. And we'll open the 110-410 CSV for the last pay item. Copy in the pay item into the next empty row in the summary box. Adjust the column width in the CSV. Then type in the description in the summary box file. Removal of existing concrete. Highlight the quantity data from Begin Station to the Area ID. Right-click and copy. Then select the first cell in the Begin Station column on the first row and paste values. The units for this pay item are square yards. So type in SY. Then we can copy the area values from the CSV. Select the first cell in the quantity column and paste values. Square yards are calculated to 1 decimal point, so we don't need to change the precision on these quantities. Then we can use another formula to get our total quantity. Highlight the first cell in the total column on the first row for this pay item. Then type in the formula box equals SUM open parenthesis and highlight the quantity values. Close parenthesis and enter. We can change the format of this cell to change the precision to 1 decimal place. Close the CSV. Then check our summary box. It's obvious we're going to need to do some adjusting to get the pay item description to fit. Let's click Save and go back to MicroStation and check what we've got. Open LDM. Highlight our Removal Items link, then right-click and select Update Now. Since we hid the length and width columns, we have a little more room to the right. So let's see if we can stretch the description column to fit. We'll just stretch the column, and this looks like it might work. So let's save, then update and see. Nope, our table has gone outside of the border, and the description doesn't quite fit. So let's break our description across the next line. And add in a couple of spaces on the next line to make it indented. Then we can stretch the column back a little save, and update to see where we are. Now our summary box fits in the border, and all our quantity data is showing properly in our summary box. But we don't need to leave all these extra empty rows in the table. Let's go back to Excel one more time. We can highlight all but the last two of the empty rows. Right-click in the row numbers and select Hide. Now we've only left 2 blank rows. We can save and then go back to MicroStation and LDM and update. And now we filled out the whole table from our CSV reports. It's a little more work than the automated tables, but it sure beats having to type in all those quantities one by one. Let's wrap up with some helpful information. As we said before, LDM is one way from Excel to MicroStation. Though the summary boxes can be edited in MicroStation, the changes won't be saved back to the source file. All changes must be made in the source file, then updated to MicroStation. The linked summary box, or text file, behaves like a cell in MicroStation though, and it can be moved within the design file without breaking the link. To make adjustments to the summary boxes, always make the changes in Excel file first, then update MicroStation through LDM. Things we do want to adjust include: do adjust the column width. You can stretch columns to fit text or adjust the summary box to fit within the sheet border. Remember, word wrapping can be tricky, so make sure to update the links while making the adjustments to check the results in MicroStation. Do hide or delete unused columns, with some exceptions. Some of the summary boxes have columns that aren't used for every project. You can hide or delete these to give you more room to adjust your columns within the plan sheet borders. Do create more sheets. For non-automated summary boxes, if you have more rows than will fit on one plan sheet border, copy the Worksheet tab in Excel for as many sheets as you need. Then create new links for each new worksheet to create as many sheets as you need for that summary. Don't delete or hide the final F column or the construction remarks column. Even though these won't be filled in by the designer, they must be in the summary box in the plans for construction to use later. Don't add non-standard columns. The summary boxes are formatted with the columns that are required by the basis of estimates. Any changes to the summary boxes must be reviewed and approved by the estimates office. And don't add extra rows. The templates are formatted with the maximum number of rows that will fit on a plan sheet border. If you have more quantities than will fit in one worksheet tab, then copy the tab in the template and create another sheet for that summary. For each summary box type, summary of payment for instance, only one Excel file is required. If there are 5 sheets worth of summary boxes for summary of payment, then you'll have one summary of payment Excel file with 5 worksheet tabs. All of the delivered templates are formatted with the correct font and borders to display correctly in MicroStation. If you copy and paste data into the templates, be sure to paste values only, so none of the formatting of the template is altered. If you paste with source formatting, it can really make a mess. When copying from a CSV report, remember to only paste the pay item, description, unit, and quantity total on the first line of the pay item group in the summary box. And remember that the text should all be uppercase. When you get to the next pay item, again, those 4 things only go on the first line. As I said before, word wrapping is not the same in Excel as it is in MicroStation. Be prepared to do a little fine-tuning when you need to edit the column widths because the text string is too long to fit on one line. It almost goes without saying, but all the summary boxes go in the summary of quantity sheets. Some of the summary boxes used to be scattered throughout the plan set, but that is no longer allowed. Now they're all kept together in the summary of quantities, with the exception of the summary of drainage structures. The Basis of Estimates, Chapter 8, has a complete list of the summary boxes. When placing your summary boxes on sheets, you need to keep them in the order that's shown in the BOE. If you happen to have 2 small summary boxes that follow one another in the sequence, they can be placed together on the same sheet border. Otherwise, the summary boxes should be placed on the sheets in order. If a specific formula has been used to create certain quantities and needs to be documented, it may either be included in the Design Notes column or it can be stored in the Design Backup tab in the Excel file for that summary box. This is the end of Module 5. Next, continue to Module 6, Chapter 7, Summary of Pay Items Workflow.